Alright guys, so a few weeks back, I revisited Super Paper Mario, and I gotta say that the experience was pretty pleasant. Fun fact, the first time I played it was when I was like 10, 11 years old, and this is actually only my second time playing. It's still underrated like I remembered back when I was like in middle school, and I did find out though that this time around it's a lot easier than when I was that young. But now that I'm older, I can definitely understand the story a lot more, and it is definitely one of the deepest stories in a Mario game. So without further ado, I want to talk about Super Paper Mario with all the Paper Mario Origami King hype. And actually, instead of doing a discussion-based video, I decided to do another fun ranking video that I haven't done in like so many months before. The chapters in this game, obviously, they're all different, and I wanted to discuss what's my least favorite to the most favorite chapters in the game. So without further ado, let's get to it. Land of Crag Mounds. Honestly, this one sucks. Like, seriously, it is the least memorable out of the bunch. Wasn't fun traversing in the land. I despise the fact that there was some backtracking, and, you know, it could have been fine if it was important backtracking, but I hated the fact that I had to backtrack just to talk to one dude in the village and be like, yeah, go left, right, middle, whatever, and you have to write that down. It was just kind of stupid to me. And sure, the villagers themselves, or the Crags, were pretty chill overall, but they were pretty forgetful. None of them really stood out, and they have pretty awful designs. I also didn't like interacting with Flint Cragley, even though he's supposed to be kind of the guy that you're supposed to like, I guess, out of the bunch of like Crags, but he gave me the annoying vibes, and I was just like, ugh, let's get this guy out of the cave already, let's just do it. In summation, honestly, there just wasn't much going on in this world. The cave aspect was pretty cool, I guess, but the music was very lackluster, and it just wasn't fun. Easily the worst in terms of gameplay and enjoyment for me, so I got nothing else to say. Land of Crag Mounds is the bottom of the list. Being one step ahead is the outer space level in Chapter 4. Now, this one was, like, I don't know, it felt obviously slow because it's in space, right? And I get that, but it was so slow, and the world itself is so big because it's space, right? It is space, how they're supposed to have all these things around you, but the fact that it's big is pretty useless because there's nothing really to interact, especially in 3D. I went 3D for Worlds 3-1 and 2, and literally there was really not that much going on, and then having it be slow and empty just felt like literally what's the point? So yeah, it's the level that felt really bare bones, and Squirps was kind of like Cragley, where I didn't really care much about him, and I thought he was a pretty much of a nuisance at times, asking for like chocolate bars and stuff. But to be honest, the last level was actually somewhat decent. It had pretty cool puzzles, and I actually could use my 3D move and actually find something out of doing that. It was also the first fight introducing Mr. L. I thought that was pretty fun and creative, and I was a fan of the boss music in 3-4, so yeah, it had some redeeming factor. Alright, so up next we have Lineland. Unfortunately, Lineland has to be here in like the lower section of the list, just because I feel like for every first level world chapter of a game always suffers from that like first one syndrome, I like to call it, because you can't really be so attached to the first level just because it's the first one. Sure, it can be pretty iconic, such as Super Mario Bros. 1-1, but I can't really rank this one high or even a little too low, despite the fact that it's number 6, just because it's the idea that it's supposed to be tutorial-like. And sure, yeah, it was super easy, Chapter 1. It serves its purpose, introducing the game's main mechanics, the gameplay, how to play, everything. The grasslands and desert areas weren't actually too hard to traverse in, and I liked the little puzzles they had in there. They're very introductory, it wasn't too hard. Fractale was cool and all, but the fact that it is overall, like, easy and, like, basic keeps it at, like, a solid number 6. Now, this is something some people may be surprised about. Sammer's Kingdom in Chapter 6 was alright. Honestly, it served its purpose just like in Chapter 1 being introductory, but this one, I was gonna rank this a lot lower just because there's only really 2 levels to, you know, play in. However, story makes it up because that's kind of like the defining factor of Chapter 6. Yeah, it's boring because it has like this fixed idea where you have to fight all these enemies and you have to do it for like 20 to 30 times or almost 30 times, I don't remember, and all the guys were so basic looking and the same. It was a little annoying, obviously, and repetitive, but The fact that the world actually got consumed, and then this was like the main idea where the game was coming towards this turning point, and then like the Pure Hearts becoming stone, Dementia coming in during Chapter 6 intermission, second Luigi fight, was like all cool. It fit well for this type of setting, so I gotta give it to this. So that's why it's here on 5. It doesn't really do much for the gameplay experience. However, it does serve its purpose in progressing the game, and it does give the viewer or gamer more of a better experience. So I'm leaving it at number 5 just because it's there, it's good, but it's not great. Moving on, at number 4, we have the underwear and overwear. I really like this concept, honestly. It was pretty much overall solid. There was just a few things I just disliked about it. I was a great fan of the themes of heaven and hell. Love that concept. Love the mini chain jump RPG battle. Thought that was a really cool bonus. There was a bunch of platforming that wasn't too annoying until you get to 7-3. Some quiz games, a cool boss in the end. But yeah, like I mentioned, all these events are pretty cool, except 7-3, like I mentioned before. It sickened me, dude. That level was so annoying. I was there for at least like half an hour or so because I couldn't find what was the right apple for Peach. And again, with like some of the levels or the designs being kind of like uninspiring or just empty, that's kind of how I felt. Despite the fact that there were a bunch of enemies and then there was a bunch of different rooms, just the whole idea was repetitive, how you have to keep jumping up, you know, the overwear stairs was very, yeah, like I said, it's just super tiring, and I just did not enjoy that part at all. And then when I actually got to the over there, it got a little bit better, a little bit annoying because everything just blended in together. They're all like clouds and stuff, and then everything leading up to the boss was a little bit just whatever. So ultimately, the only thing I really disliked was 7-3. Everything else, like again, the concept, the themes of heaven versus hell was very good. The puzzles were nice. Overall, solid chapter. Now, taking the number 3 spot just slightly is Gloam Valley. Now, hear me out. Gloam Valley is in Chapter 2. It's funny how this is so high on the list, but it does take the cake compared to Chapter 7 because it didn't have any levels that annoyed me, and they were actually pretty unique to the rest. Like, each level to me was so different. And while it is in the beginning of the game, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like how it takes place basically in the jail, and you have to work your way to pay off the million, like, rubies, and it's a great chapter for new players because it makes them believe that the only way to pay off your debt is through hitting those blocks or running in hamster wheels. So it's extremely satisfying when you find out the true secrets in paying off your debt. Like, just the idea how there's some secrets involved to it probably will make the player more engaged to play the game more. Not to mention the Mimi fight in the end was quite exhilarating. Going through room to room in the basement always made me nervous, especially with the music in the background. Like, it was always scary to hear that. The fight ultimately was pretty fun, not too challenging, obviously, since it's in the beginning of the game still, and the Merly quiz was a nice, funny touch. Again, pretty solid, no complaints here, and that's truly the reason why it's higher than Chapter 7. Coming in hot at number 2, we have Castle Black of Chapter 8. Definitely has the best boss and the best boss music in the game, hands down. It was also very memorable because it was like the one that tied the most to the story. You figure out, you know, why Bleck's doing all this stuff. You see the true intentions from Dementia, so it was definitely important in terms of story as well. Not to mention that Chapter 8 was also pretty challenging given the fact that not only it was the hardest, but the fact that literally we've never seen a chapter where they were just swarmed with enemies. Every single level in Chapter 8 had like Bowser's possessed minions, many newer like enemy faces. I also thought it was a nice touch to see the characters develop a little bit in the end of the game. Despite being a Mario game where character development really isn't a big thing, it was just, again, just really nice to see Bowser helping Chunks, Mimi and Peach, Luigi and Dementia, even though it was kind of just like a given and like easy to tell they're going to like be lost after level per level. But it was just nice to see a little touch, seeing them work together and settle their differences a little bit. But despite that, like, those were really fun mini boss fights, and it's, again, another solid world. There wasn't really much that annoyed me, despite the fact that it was, like, again, a lot of black going on, and it kind of just made me a little bit nauseated, but it was kind of lifeless, but at the same time, had a lot of substance, so I think that just basically makes up for the blandness of, like, the atmosphere. And incredible ending, and a lot better of a challenge than Chapter 2, so that's why I ranked that one higher. And finally, at number 1, we got the Bitlands. I know, Chapter 3, not that far in the game, but despite Francis being a total creep, I think Chapter 3 is the best one in Super Paper Mario. It honestly has a bit of everything. A regular overworld level, an underwater level, a sky level, and then a castle to traverse in the end. In addition to that, each one had kind of like a mini boss towards the end of them. Like for example, for 3-1, after you go through like a 1-1 or 1-2 vibe type level in the original Super Mario Bros, you verse Bowser in the end, and then with this blooper in the underwater, it's cool because obviously it fits the theme. And 3-3, when you thought you were done like going up on top of the tree, you have to fight Dimension End. And like I mentioned before, Francis himself for 3-4, despite him being a total weirdo. But honestly, I define this chapter as fun and exciting to go through, and entering the castle is actually pretty magical in today's gaming world. There are so many references to video games and nerd culture that many of us can probably relate to on some sort of level. I totally forgot that the catbots also say "Welcome Home Master" like an anime, so I thought that was a pretty nice touch. And looking closely actually in Francis's rooms, you can see references to like past titles such as Thousand Year Door, cool text such as a Japanese GameCube and a Wii. Ultimately, this world is awesome in my books because it clearly was marketed to geeky and veteran Mario platforming fans just like me, and pretty much that is why Bitlands takes the number 1 spot. Well guys, that is it. These Super Paper Mario chapters all ranked. Now, I know it seems like I didn't really like that many of them, but hear me out. It's not like I totally hated them, I just felt like I couldn't really vibe with them as much. I thought the other chapters in Thousand Year Door as well as 64 were better in many ways, but you know, it is what it is. This is an opinion, but I will say that each and every chapter was pretty distinctive and had its creative ideas and ultimately played a part in the overall plot. And let me just reiterate again that Super Paper Mario in general is one of the most underrated Mario titles of all time. Highly suggest y'all to give the game a try if you haven't already. It's definitely a Paper Mario game you shouldn't skip out on. With that all out of the way, next time Brian and I will be tackling the chapters from Thousand Year Door, so if you're a fan of that game, be sure to stay tuned for that. Leave a like if you enjoyed today's video, and subscribe for more Paper Mario and Nintendo content coming soon to this channel. I've been JigsawFlex, signing out for now, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Deuces.